In today's video, I want to address some of the current situations around the world. Starting the year 2021, we get into some issues around the world regarding with the pandemic, regarding with some political situations. Now, I want to make clear this is not going to be a political video, but I do want to go into some of the reasons, some of the background which might maybe the source of these issues. In any case, what I want to say as well is that we have a lot to be excited in 2021 because there are a lot of parts of the research on consciousness that are going mainstream. There's good news in the research on psychedelics and entheogens. There's good news in the topics of near-death experiences going into the mainstream with some large company documentaries and the sort of thing. It seems that the topic is coming into the mainstream, and that is very important. As I think I shared it, I'm not really sure, one of the videos of Pim Van Lommel, who is one of the researchers of the near-death experience phenomena, and he states something very interesting. He says that the way that a society thinks about death might be the thing that defines the way they live their lives. And with today's news coming from all around the world and the political situation and people painting a very bleak picture in terms of 2021, what's going to happen this year, I think people are predisposing themselves already to a very bleak year, but I don't think this is going to happen. I think it's all coming together. It all seems to be part of something that had to happen and that needs to happen, as everything is it seems to be a part of evolution. So I'm not gonna go a lot into politics, but I do want to share some thoughts about the background or the sources where all of these issues might come from, because what we think is politics is actually just expressions of very basic energies which can be manifested in any part of life, in any part of reality, really, because we're dealing with primary forces. So I'm just gonna go a little bit into that, but this is not a political video. I am not taking any parties. Neutrality. If the truth about what I've been researching and what I've been saying, if there's some truth to it, then we're all part of the same thing, and we're sort of figuring out who we are as a species, as races, as beings. So it's all part of the same thing. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. One of the first things that came into my mind that made me very surprised about the whole news about the Capitol in the United States was that picture of a man dressed like a Viking berserker with a lot of iconography in his body, which he was showing and presenting proudly as he was shirtless in the Capitol with his speaker, and he was ready for confrontation. And today is not strange to see that, but it begs the question: what does Norse mythology has to do with the Trump movement? It doesn't make any sense unless we realize that the Trump movement is mainly, and at the core, is a movement of identity. Now, when we look at this man who is dressed as a berserker, you can see some of his tattoos, which represent different parts of Nordic mythology. He's got on his chest the Falknut, which is one of the core elements or icons of Norse mythology, representing different things. People are not entirely sure what it actually meant, but if we look at it closer, it's some sort of Ouroboros, which is the snake eating its own tail. The lines on the Falknut, they never end. They're interconnected, just showing some of the ideas of the ideas of cycles of rebirth and the ongoing cycle of nature, the ongoing cycle of reality, which was very prominent in those primitive mythologies and societies, as I've said before. He's got a Mjolnir also tattooed, which the Mjolnir is the hammer of Thor, and it represents strength. Berserkers were warriors who would, interestingly enough, were some of the toughest warriors in Nordic tales. It is alleged to them that they would go into psychedelic trance states in order to become ready for battle, and they would get into a battle trance-like state, very much like the ancient oracles, as I've been speaking about, and would become these crazed, enraged warriors. So when we ask ourselves, what does this have to do with the Trump movement, we can see that this is a lot about identities, about different psychological factors that are being put together, forming this big movement that is emerging, that has emerged, and that is prominent in today's American culture. Now, in 2017, there was an article by Psychology Today which just made a list about 5 key traits of the Trump supporters. This was 4 years ago, when the second term was starting. And as number 1, they have authoritarianism, which you can understand that these people have a very strong sense of wanting to lead, of wanting some sort of structure. This is not inherently bad or evil or anything like that. This is about structure. This is a masculine quality. This is what I've been saying in the previous video in this category. I was speaking about these feminine principles and these masculine principles. Now, there's nothing wrong with structure, but we have to come to understand that this is what it's all about. It's about some sense of structure. They feel that the Trump ideals, the policies that Trump is pushing forward, have to do with a better sense of structure on what seems to be chaotic. One of the other key traits that they were speaking about is social dominance orientation. They speak about different hierarchical groups, and one of the key items in this is that a lot of the policies from this comes from any right-wing political sphere, is self-interest, is this idea that you come into the world and you make yourself as rich as you can, as successful as you can, by your own means. But the whole idea about working hard, the whole idea in America, in the United States, it was about the American dream. After World War II, when everything was rebuilding, there was a sort of a global initiative to start an economy where a person would be able to provide for himself and his family and grow in the world in a sort of an equal standing, an equal ground. So that was a great idea that emerged after World War II, after the world was reconstructing itself. But then some of these hierarchy structures evolved into something else that was no longer helping this American dream, this idea of having a healthy middle class, and everything collapsed into what we see today. We see the 1%, this tiny percentage of the population controlling most of the world's economy, most of the world's resources. And I think here there's a huge irony in whatever identity movement is being pushed here, because this is the thing. This is an identity movement. People are thinking about in nationalist terms, in terms of gaining an identity. So using horns and having long birds and the red hat, everything is a sign of identity, and this is just natural for humans to do. But it's a huge irony, because while the American dream was a social movement, was an idea for having an equal standing and creating this large middle class, as I've been saying, it was this hierarchy which destroyed it. So some of the right-wing conservative movements are actually pushing for these hierarchies, and they like the idea of having these strong corporations and having these ideas of self-centered beliefs, self-centered postures, which want you to not care about social policies, not care about everything else, and work for the individual, for the self-reliant who does not care about anything else. But at the same time, they want the social movement, which is gonna help their identity group, whether you call it the American worker class or whatever identity it is. They want this social identity. Where people, they show a red hat to each other and they feel part of the same community. They want this and they want the other thing at the same time. This is a huge irony. And the thing that is happening here is what happened some of the issues in the world previously in World War II is this idea of creating an identity who looks for a scapegoat, who looks for someone or something to blame. And in between all the confusion, that's where we get the conspiracies. That's where we get all these things which aren't really there. This ties to another of the key traits that this article that I've been speaking about speaks of. It's relative deprivation, this idea of being entitled to something and then have it taken from you. And it makes sense. There's a lot of talk about entitlement and whether we deserve or not, and people who feel privileged and things like that. But in any case, everybody is working towards creating a better situation for themselves, for having a better, always looking up for a better situation. So this makes sense that this masculine principle is trying to find someone to blame. And this has happened all throughout history. It's not about the actual situation. It's not about It has happened before, and it's this looking for a scapegoat. In World War II, there was a different scapegoat, and then previously through the monarchy situation in the Illumination period in Europe, it was a different sort of villain that people were looking at, to blame, to try to put to the stake, to crucify. People are always looking for people to crucify. People are always looking for scapegoats to blame the issues. So this is what is happening in America right now. They are looking for something to blame, and there we get all the conspiracy theories, and we get all of these pushes, which as I've been saying, they are not the actual reason. We have to look into the actual reason of why the feudal system existed, why the monarchical system existed, why these hierarchical structures that I've been talking about. Why did the American dream didn't work? It's all the same. It's one force that is trying to create a world which is more equal, more fair, which is trying to improve the human experience, not for oneself, but for all, for a society. This is the idea of the American dream. You contribute to society, and you are retributed for this. You're paid back. All the effort you put into society, you're paid back as an individual. So we have to look who is to blame, and it's nowhere outside of us. It's us. It's our own ego. It's the same principle and the same trait that acts upon the human mind, which wants to control others, which wants to assert dominance over others. This is why these hierarchical structures, you call any hierarchical structure that existed in history, at some point it was the Roman Empire, at some point it was the monarchy, the feudal systems, and everything that has caused a counter-revolution is the same thing. It's ego. I am someone who started this path into deep political literature, and then I realized what was the enemy, what was the causing, the main problem, the main cause for all the issues is the ego. This idea of being alone in the world and wanting to exploit, wanting to get as rich as possible, wanting to hoard, wanting to have control over others, just not understanding your connection to society, your connection to the world at large. So it became a psychological issue. It became, and then you may call it a spiritual issue. It transcends what we think politics are. This is why I do not care about politics anymore, because I understand this as an inherent human flaw which causes everything, and this can manifest into your personal relationships with people, with other people, with everyone you deal with, and it can manifest in the largest political issues in the world right now. So if anybody watches this video, I would like them to understand and to come to gnosis, to come to understanding that this is a much bigger issue than politics. This is an issue that is within the human psyche. And this is why today in 2021 we have to get past politics. This is where the relevance of the research on consciousness lies. It's all pointing towards the idea that we are the same consciousness, that we are the same energy, we are all somehow connected. And as I've been saying, there's always this principle that tries to create a better human experience. You talk about any revolution, it was against these hierarchical structures. It doesn't matter what flag you put on them. It's always the idea of the self trying to break away from a hierarchical structure that is trying to assert dominance over you. If people understood that we are part of the same being, and that we are actually energies or spiritual forms which are coming into the world through reincarnation, through lives over and over and over again, we wouldn't have political systems which create things that we see today in the world, the poverty that we see today in the world. We wouldn't have these social classes where someone has to work 12 hours to make minimal wage to barely get by and to live full lives of misery, full lives of sickness, full lives of not being content with life. We wouldn't have so many suicides in the world. We wouldn't have so much nihilism, so much pain in the world if we understood that we could shift our political systems and structures towards a better human experience. If everyone understood what people are understanding through these transcendental experiences caused by entheogens, caused by near-death experiences, caused by different things, people would understand that we are part of the same thing. And that there's this force which is always trying to improve human experience. We wouldn't have any of those things. We wouldn't have the fear of loss. If we understood death as a stepstone into something else, we wouldn't have this fear of death, fear of not having enough, and trying to take it from someone else. All of these things are an issue within our own psyche. If we understood more about who we are as human beings, we wouldn't be stuck in these political agendas, in these political issues. We would come to gnosis, and we would simply put all of our efforts not on blaming others, not on looking for scapegoats, not on putting excuses. We would put all of our efforts into developing and improving the human experience. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you, After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.